Awesome. Thanks to everybody. My name is Pat Calihou. I'm a Métis artist. My family were the Métis leaders and the voyagers of their time. And so I like to do these crazy projects to honor them. Like I build Red River carts and do all these canoe builds. And we got the opportunity to build this amazing full-size replica of a York boat. And it was like the biggest undertaking that I've ever done, right? And I couldn't do it alone. I had my best friend, Sean Anton, and historically it would have been done by a team. So you would have had a master boat builder as apprentice, and then the crew. So the crew would go out and get all the trees. The master would say what trees. Everybody would go and get them, saw them up how they wanted them, and work as a massive team. So me and Sean, it was just the two of us. So much harder. Even just getting started was like finding the first piece of wood. And where do you source the materials? I couldn't go to like one place and get all the boards. I had to go to every single lumber store in the Lower Mainland. So all the way from like Vancouver to, I think I went as far as Hope. So every single place to find the boards. I could get 10 boards from one place, 3 boards from this place, maybe 20 boards from another place. So I had to go through probably 5,000 boards easily at different places just to find I needed 220 or something boards for the outside. So it was such an unbelievable undertaking just trying to find that. And nails. So we had Danny the blacksmith make a whole bunch of nails for us because we need these special 3-sided boat nails, and they're 3 inches, and they had to be a certain way. And it's not something you could buy from anywhere. So they had to be custom made. We found one place in America we could get these cut nails. They're similar. They call it a boat nail. But it's not as good as the blacksmith nail. The blacksmith nail was 100% better than the machine cut nails that we could get from the States. But when we started this project, the pandemic happened, and we couldn't get enough nails, so it wasn't possible for us to have the blacksmith make all the nails. Otherwise, we would have for sure. It was probably the best thing. I think the most awesome part of that project was when the blacksmith came in and gave us a cup of nails every day of his special boat nails that he'd make for us. It's just amazing. So I think that was the absolute highlight because it was really hard. The whole thing was like super hard. So very first thing we had to do was I had to find a piece of wood for my keel and my stem and stern. So the big beam that the whole boat is built on is a big Douglas fir beam, and it's a 4x6. So it's not a common size that you can get from anywhere. And it had to be 30 feet long. So it was really challenging trying to find that piece of wood. I went to mills, custom mills, and all over the place. And the only wood that I could get was fresh green, just like a still living wood. So it wasn't quite good enough for me because I'm building this boat and it was outside in the wintertime. So there's all that going on. And so that normal wood would just start twisting, right? So I lucked out and I found a salvaged beam from a building in Vancouver. So they demolitioned a huge old building, and one of the roof rafters was a great big, huge, massive piece of Douglas fir that was way larger than we needed. So we had to get it custom cut. So we had to buy that big, huge beam and then take it somewhere, have all the big nails and stuff taken out of it, and run through a sawmill a bunch of times for us. And we got our special piece of wood that we could start with. So tremendous amount of work just to get that first piece of wood. And then we had to, so after we had that, we had to make all the pieces, the shapes of the boat. So for that, we had to use large, like 2x12 dimension wood, because they're big, huge shapes. So half of the boat. So you'll see in the pictures, I'm standing beside a big wooden shape, and that's a sawn frame. So we hand saw all those pieces out, and I can't cut it out of one piece. So I'd have to make all of that huge piece out of multiple pieces, and then do it again on the other side and stagger the joints. So I had to basically make that whole piece twice and nail it all together just for my one piece. So I had to make 4 big ones like that. And then all the other ones were bent. So they're bent on steam. So I took steam and then bent these things around a jig, which we'll show you a video of later, which that in itself was really challenging. So here I am. I'm in a tent and it's winter time and it's super freezing cold out. And I've had to soak wood all night and then put it into this big steam box that I built. We made a big, huge plywood box, and I took a 50-gallon drum of water and a big propane burner, and then we hooked it up and boiled that big, huge thing of water and steamed those things for most of the day, and then had our heater cranked in there, and then so I'd have to soak it, steam it, pull it out of that steamer as fast as we could, and get it into the jig. While at the same time, I had an electric steamer and pouring a boiling kettle of water over that thing to make it bend. Because you'd get it in there and you'd make the bend around the jig, and then a couple seconds later, you'd hear this snap, and then you look, and your rib is now broken. So, and it's a tremendous amount of work to make that little rib. I had to sit there, and we couldn't get the right cuts of wood, so we'd have to buy big beams, and I'd have to use like a skill saw and cut the smaller dimensions out of the Douglas fir that we needed because we couldn't get the right dimensions. And it's one of the hardest woods to work with. It's really hard on your saws. It's hard to chisel. It's just hard, really, really hard. The slivers are killer. When you get a cedar sliver, it's not so bad, but when it's a Douglas fir sliver, it's like, ouch, right away. It's like, oh my God, it's crazy. So very difficult. So, and it was about 2 weeks of trying to bend these Douglas fir ribs without success. So I tried every single different thing I could think of, every different method. I just could not figure it out. And so I switched to a different species of wood. So spruce works really good. I know when we're building canoes, if I didn't have yellow cedar, I would use spruce, because if you get the right cut of it, it bends and it has the same characteristics, and it works really good for boat building and stuff. So it bent really awesomely, and I could have the same nice thick dimension that I liked. And it retains its shape. So after you bend it, you come back the next day and you can take it out, and it has the same arc. It won't just go lay flat. That's the other challenges of bending wood, is picking right woods and the right cut of wood and the right grain of wood. So I'd have to look at these boards. Me and my buddy Sean would be there looking at the board, looking at it, making sure that the grain's on the right angle of it. And there's so much to it that I didn't expect, for sure. And it was an incredible challenge.
Pat, should we show the steam video so that people can get a sense of the complexity of it all? Because it's pretty incredible little piece of footage you got. Oh, here it comes. You can narrate if you want.
Yeah, so we're in panic mode. So I'm trying to grab clamps. So we've got all the clamps all sitting there, opened up to the perfect depths. Yeah. So here comes Sean. Is it playing? There you go. Yeah. There we go. So now he's getting the kettle ready and pouring it on there. And then I got a chafing strap to go around it. So where it would normally break, I put a band of metal in there. And so it seemed to hold the fibers together better of the wood. And luckily it's winter out, because he's pouring boiling water all over my hands. But it was appreciated though, for sure. So we did about 2 weeks of not bending. So 10 days, we'll say, of having them snap before we switch to a different wood. We switched to the spruce wood, and then they started bending much easier. So if you think about how long this is, it doesn't seem like that long, but that piece of wood is coming out of a boiling hot environment and it's going into a freezing cold environment, so it's shocking. So if we don't pour that boiling water over top of the wood, it just wants to break. So yeah, that was pretty impressive. So frustrating for sure. So I went about 2 weeks of doing that, and then we switched to the spruce, and then those all worked out. And in there'll be a big picture of once all the pieces are in and all the ribs are in. You can see it. It's really awesome. So my son thought that he would come and join me. Hi, buddy. Thanks for the camera.
Welcome to come. Should we show the, where do you want to go from here? Did you want to talk about how you got into, how you got into this project and what brought you to it? And then we can show the pictures again, or how do you want to go from here?
For sure. Yeah, so we showed the steaming one, and someone asked me a question there.
Do you have the original boat design plans?
Yeah, so I got the plans from Fort Garry. So my great-grandfather, Michel, he built these boats, and he also paddled us through that Athabasca region and through Fort Garry and stuff. So I phoned Fort Garry, and I got the plans for that boat, and that which happened to be the same plans that Parks Canada had provided for me. So that's where we got the plans from. And so shortly after, we started building it. We got about most of the way of the frame being built, and we realized as we were going to put the boards on that some of the numbers, they weren't correct. So we'd have to pull, some of the numbers are there, but from the front station forward, it's not provided. So I had to literally pull the front shape of the boat out of the air by hanging cardboard from a stick with a center line on it. And I had to fold the ends of the cardboard over inside of the boat. So that's how we got the shapes for the front of the boat. Because when we went to go and put the actual plank on, and you go to bend it over, boards won't bend a certain way. So geometry plays a huge part. So if these pieces are all the same width, it creates this the wrong shape. So it was really frustrating when we realizing that. So, but we figured it out, and we only got about a board or two on, and then we were like, it's not working. Why won't it work? And we're looking at the plans and trying to figure it out, right? And there's no one for us to call. We were the only ones. So we figured out, we just stood back and looked, and we can see if we take a bit off here and we take a bit off there. So we decided to take all the front stations off from the front piece forward. So probably, a week or two worth of work, and we took it all off and then rebuilt it because we saw the flaw in the drawing, right? And we figured out, okay, why won't this work? And we overcame that insane situation. Super, super hard. So you're going from this drawing, right? And you're thinking, this is a drawing. It's no problem. It should work. And you can't really tell it's not going to work until you're actually there doing it. So you've got this huge, huge monument. For me, it was a monument to honor all of our ancestors and the Métis people alive, and the Métis people that will come, and the French people that all of those people that were in the boats, because we don't have anything like that. Nothing really to go and touch, right, and put our hands on. So it was really a big motivator that way. So if we couldn't accomplish it or achieve it, it was like, oh man, it wasn't an option for us. So we had to figure out some way to overcome it. My partner was like, oh, it's so hard. But we found it. And I literally was calling to my ancestors and give me the answer, please. How do we do this? How can we make this work? So it put me in touch with my ancestors big time. So, because every day, here I am in this tent, this huge, massive wooden structure that we've built that our ancestors used to paddle. and they used to build them too, but they didn't have anything like we had. They didn't have a kettle or, a skill saw or something. They had tools that they had made, and it was incredible to think about what they had, what they could achieve with just basic stuff. So it made it easier for me to accept I have to do this, and failure is not an option, right? So steaming the boards, the ribs was a really hard one. The boards too had to be steamed. So the plank boards had to be steamed and soaked all night. And at the end of it, I ended up taking this plastic sheeting that they use in construction for something like for downpipes or something when you don't have a gutter in. This big plastic sheet, and I would make kind of like a cap off one end of it, and I'd stuff the boat strip up inside that plastic sheet, and I'd clamp it all shut, and I'd stuff the steamer in the end of that thing, and I'd just let it sit there and steam and percolate. And for like the first 6 feet of the boat plank, so when we go to put that boat plank in there and we bend it around, Sean's in the front of the boat and he's got a clamp on it and he's got his hands on it, and I'm lying underneath the boat, and we're trying to bend those boards with every single bit of our power. We're literally doing a back bend on the ground and pushing up as hard as you can, bench pressing the boat plank up onto the boat. And then once you get it all up there, you gotta get clamps in it. So it was really challenging having enough clamps. I needed 1 million clamps and little wooden wedges, and it was like so difficult. And then once you get that all in there, if I just grabbed one of those nails and hammer it in there, the plank would split. So I'd have to make a little tiny pilot hole for the boat nail to go in first. So you'd pilot hole it. So every single nail on there, there must be 30, 40 pounds of nails on that boat. And every single one of them was something like that. It was crazy.
Should we show give the listeners a chance to look at the boat a little bit further on? So the maybe would the one where you show the priming, the boat primed, is kind of not quite finished. Should we show that video?
Sure, that's a good one.
And that's a good walkthrough because you can narrate it as well.
There you go. Yeah, it's all in primer. All in primer.
Baby primed.
Awesome. So there it is. So you can see we don't have much work. Boards all over. It's a crazy environment. There's the red cedar. There you go.
That's some cool on the inside.
Throw out the soundtrack.
The floor's not done yet, but awesome, man. Now we're gonna paint it red. Yeah.
So you can see really how big it is. Like the amount of planks and board in there is insane. We got planks up the outside and planks all on the inside. There's probably about 400 planks, I'd say, on that boat. Pretty crazy. But you want to play the red one when it's finished? Oh. So if you see if you look across the boat, you can see these plates. You'll probably see in there. They look like big rectangle chunks of board when you look across against the wall. So when we joined our planks together, they had this crazy old way of joining boards together by making a plate. So when your boards come together, you put a plate against it, pound your nails through, and then bend them back over and pound them back like a staple. It was insane.
How long did it take? How long did the whole project take?
It took us 6 months. We thought we were going to go for 3, but then after the plans went awry and stuff like that, and the pandemic made it hard for us to get like the last of the boards and all the last of the materials. So it ended up taking us 6 months. 7 days a week. We did 5 days a week for the first month. and then we went 7 days a week. It was crazy. It was a lot of work.
Mhm. Do you want me to show the slides again and you can walk through the steps?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so there's Pat again standing beside. And I'll just kind of scroll through and you can talk about what you see.
So this is a book that is available through Métis Nation. And there's 5 generations of my family. So starting with me on the right, and then my father and my grandmother and my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, and my great-great-great-grandfather. And they all worked through the fur trade. So my great-great-great-grandfather worked for the Northwest Company, and my great-great-grandfather worked for the Hudson Bay Company, and my great-grandfather worked for the Hudson Bay Company as well. Yes, there's the crazy plan. So that big wooden block that you guys saw me carving on with the handsaw, that's in that picture right there at the top. So we had to connect the end piece and the great big middle piece with that connecting block in there, it was incredibly difficult to make that piece off of this drawing. So there's our tent. It's a 40-foot tent, 40 by 20, I believe. And the boat's 43 feet. So we had to make the tent bigger. The first thing we had to do is kick out a wall and make it a little bit bigger.
And that's the site of the old boat used to be there. I can see the old plaque is still there at that time, right? In this picture?
Yep. So on that drawing, it gives you plot points. So a center line and a baseline and where to go from there. So that's us plotting that out with screws. And then later we're going to bend a batten of wood around it and then draw out the shape. And that's what you'll probably see next. So that's us filing the outer shape of one of the saws, or from one of the sawing stations.
And did you also make your tools you have to make some of the tools as well?
Yeah, we had to make a couple of tools for bending the nails. We made a special little tool for grabbing the nail. You can pound it over. So that little piece that he was making there, that's what we had to make. So if you can see, it's multiple pieces. So I had to make them twice and then stagger them so that they covered the joints, so that they weren't floppy. So they're super strong and like a big double beam. And that is the connector block that we're talking about on that drawing.
The dimensions are really big. It's incredible the size of things, eh?
Oh yeah, it was really huge. Everything was really big and difficult to cut and to work with. So after we cut our pieces and make them, then we got to file them in shape. So like a belt sander, that's no good in this case. File is the best way to make it precise. So we draw our lines on that. All those pieces were cut out, and then we cut them out outside the line and then file them right into shape to make them as perfect as we can. Miles of filing. It's a pretty huge block.
That's the piece that showed on the plans too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we got our keel up, and I've got these things just kind of standing up there, clamped in place, and we're spacing them where we want them along the keel. Just dry fitting them. And there's Sean up on the stem. So that's the front of the boat, and he's chopping it into shape with a hewing axe. Oh, that's us pounding in one of the connecting the connecting rods. So we didn't go and buy stuff like go to Walmart or Home Depot or whatever. We made custom stuff. So instead of making, we didn't use nuts and bolts. We went and got steel plate and threaded rods, and we welded them and made these cool, awesome things to connect the sawn stations to the keel. So in this picture, I took this picture because all those pieces that you see in there were the pieces that they don't give you. So from that, all the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces right there, we had to. So I put dummy strips around the big stations, and they're just like, I call them dummy strips because they're going to come off later. So you just bend them around to give them the shape of the boat. And so as we, that gives us a shape. So we had to hang cardboard inside of there to get those pieces. But oh my gosh, having to figure out how do you even get that, right? We're like, oh man, okay, I guess we're going to do this. And it worked out. So yeah, there's some more of the dummy strip. And if you look between those boards in the boat, I got to turn sideways to walk through there. So it was really frustrating working without the amount of space, because you'd bend down to pick up your hammer and your head would hit the boat and your back would hit the tent, right? Super frustrating. So there is the deck. So the front of the boat where the 11th man will be sitting up there. We made that out of cedar, and we left it so that you could see all of the blacksmith nails. Oh yeah, there's a good one. So if you can see that all the ribs, I think just about every single rib is bent in there. I think there's 30 something down each side. It's crazy. It's like so many ribs. It's insane. So. So this is one of our ribs that broke. So you can see right by that red clamp there, you can see a big crack in it. And that's a piece of oak. So I also tried oak, and it didn't work.
There's the crack there, hey?
Yeah. That one happened later. It lasted a little longer. And there you go. Yeah, we're starting to got almost all the planks on there, just about at this point. Still quite a bit of cross bracing and stuff, and so it's really difficult pounding boat nails in. But you wouldn't believe it when you're bent backwards and trying to hammer them in, or underneath the boat when you're lying flat on your back, and you got to try not to hit your forehead with the hatchet. It was pretty. There were some pretty funny mornings in that tent, I'll tell you.
And that's one of your blacksmith nails, right?
Yeah. We put all the blacksmith nails in the front of the boat because they held the best for some reason. And all in the front, and then on the ends, and then the store-bought ones we put in the middle, painting them anyway. So we wanted you to see the blacksmith nails in there, because for us, for the builders, that was the gem in the whole thing, was finding the dry piece of wood to start with, and then having the blacksmith nails. So they're showing caulking. So instead of putting oakum in this situation, if I'd put oakum in there and pitch, by now all that stuff would have been falling out of there. Because when you do that, you got to put those boats in the water, and you fill them up with water, and then you get them all out and purge it. There's a process, and then you got to work them, right? So as those boats dried out, they leaked, and those boats historically leaked all the way there and all the way back. So for this case, we used a type of caulking that would expand with the boat and contract in this case. And then after that, we primed it and painted it. And there's my little inspector. My son and my daughters came out. They painted the paddles for us. So we didn't make those paddles. They were left from the last boat that was there, the last bateau. So we thought someone worked very hard on those paddles. If you look at them, someone worked incredibly hard at carving those paddles, and they were pretty rotten and stuff, but we took hand planers and we carved them right down until we're at fresh wood, and those paddles were still amazing deep down inside. So we carved them all down, gave them a fresh coat of paint, and my little helpers came out, and so it was a family affair, right? So that was their contribution. And here's the inside. So it was really difficult making the floor and nothing is square. So, you know, in building things that aren't boats, it's a little easier, right? But when you're in there, everything is like, it's hard. Everything's got multiple angles on it. And it was really difficult, but it turned out really nice. And we used spruce for the floor, but we stained it to make it look like a little different color for contrast. And we really wanted I wanted the whole boat to be left wood, but the fort wanted it painted red for the Hudson Bay Company. And but we compromised, and I think that the red and then the wood, the multicolored wood on the inside, and I clear coated the spruce boards on the inside. It looks really good. And we put some red cedar on the deck because we're in because of where we're at, and it looks so good. So. And that is an amazing piece of work right there. So that rudder right there was connected by and made these awesome hangers. And then we took round stock and we pounded one end down. So we made it like a mushroom on one end and put it through and then flipped it over and then pounded the other end on there. I think we might have a video of that, of Sean doing that. So it was really hard. So I can't remember how many of those rivets are in there, but there's probably, 10 or 20 of them. And so you got to hammer them down on both sides. And it was a mechanical fix, super strong, unbelievable. Historically, you probably would have used like a rivet, but this was just our way of doing it. And this elder Ken Pruden came out and blessed the boat. So if you guys look, the boat's sitting on some cottonwood logs, and so we would historically rolled them on poplar logs and also cottonwood logs because they grow nice and straight along the rivers. So I thought it would be really awesome to use those for the boat stand, a little more significant. And those were really hard too to make those. So we used we had a double-sided axe. So we cut those things in half. And then we took our double-sided axe and hatcheted all around the outside of those things. It took us a couple of days of serious axe work to get those done, but it looks really good and it's really strong. I think it looks better than if I had used some like timber from the store or something like that. I think it was better to use that. Harvested it off the land. So it was really super cool. And there we are at the end of that one. Pretty huge boat. So 43 feet long, 10'5" wide. Just an enormous piece of history. So if you ever get a chance to go down there, please do. So it's got a cover on it right now, but they're going to hopefully put some bigger cover on it eventually. That's just a temporary cover.
Did you want to see the riveting? Did you want to show that riveting video?
Sure. So this particular boat, it would hold about
I think
6
it's video
tons.
2. Oh, there we go.
Saw that question out there. Held about 6 tons, and this one had I think we made enough room for 8 rowers, or 7, I believe.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that was a cool one. So yeah, those blacksmith nails are awesome, and so we clear coated those all, so you can come back and see them. So the inside of the boat is got a coating on it. So different coatings on the railing. I put some thicker stuff, and on the inside I use a different type of coating. So it's not just left. It's not left sitting there just raw wood.
Mhm.
So it can be.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
We have a question from Mark Forsyth saying, what did you discover about your family through this project?
Oh my gosh, how amazing they were. Amazingly, talk about persevering. I can't imagine rowing this enormous boat with, 6 tons of stuff and, your body. It's got a rudder, and if there's wind, you have a sail like on a big lake. But I mean, I can't imagine. It just must be amazing, man. Like, it made me connected to them in a way that much more, because I was connected to them. Like, I always think of my ancestors. Like, the last 5 or 6 years, I've been building Red River carts and paddles and doing all these cool talks and learning so much about my ancestors and meeting cousins. And so it's just like has been this amazing extra boost for sure for getting me in touch with them, and it made my brain grow big time, because I had to figure out how to overcome this seemingly impossible task that our ancestors used to do, and it's like I can't believe how hard it was.
And then we have another question. Did you produce any new plans for other builders after you worked out?
You know what's funny? So I mean, we definitely have notes. And I do it definitely. It's easier. Definitely a second time around for sure. So, but yeah. So, but I have plans. So I mean, if anybody wants to go for it, man, I can help you guys or advise you or whatever. Share my knowledge, because that's what we're all supposed to do. We're not supposed to keep it all. It was given to us, and we have to pass it on, because that's how everything gets on. Our traditions carry on, right?
There's a question about, could you talk about the swatch you have pinned to your shirt?
Oh, this is a little mini sash. Well, normally I'm standing up and I've got a sash on, right? But so it's different now. I'm sitting down. So I feel naked without my sash, right? So I just put on a little miniature one on my chest. So.
And
Yes.
another question, a couple questions. One is, do the blacksmith nails rust over time?
Probably, but I mean, that's just the way it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, these ones, they've got coating on them. Like, I mean, it's either got paint on the outside or some sort of a clear coat on the inside. So they're not totally left to the elements. But historically, for sure, I'm sure they would have rusted.
Another question, the weight must be incredible considering that. How would they what method would they use to get the boat to the water back in the day? Would they have built it close to the water?
Hopefully. I mean, but you'd roll it on logs to get it to where you're going. So nice poplar logs that grow round and straight. So that's what we'd roll them on, like portaging them too. But yeah, you'd want to be around water for sure.
The question is, how many men would have been rowing? You made space for 8, but was that usual, or can you talk a little bit about the different sizes?
You could there's different sizes. Yeah. So there was a couple different sizes. We just chose to do the biggest one, but you could put more seats in there. So it depends on how many, the plans that we did had that amount of seats in it. So we just put that many, but you could put more seats in it by just putting a plank on it.
Somebody's asking, would you consider making small copies for other museums?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I do. I do all these big things, right? Like I do Red Ricard full-size replicas and canoes and plank boats and everything, right? People are like, hey, can you figure out how to do this? we do it.
Somebody, or Lori said, I like that you carved a Métis symbol on the handle of the rudder. Did you carve them in any other place on the boat?
We burnt them. So my friend made a cool wood burner infinity. So we hid them around the boat. So it's one of the things when you go there, find how many infinities are on the boat. But the rudder, yeah, that was a really amazing additive. So for sure.
What, and the next question is, what is your, the questions are just coming in hard and fast. What's your next project?
Right now I'm doing a full-size Red River cart at Fort Langley to be on display there. And I just finished building a big exhibit. So all these cool kiosks up there about the video. So next time you go there, you can see a video about the boat that we just talked about, and the cart, and the fiddle music, and all different parts of our culture. So
we have a question. How does it work in the water? So could you maybe talk about the extent of the project? And
so this would have been obviously the largest of the fur trading boats, and it would have had 6 tons of stuff in it. And if you're in a lake or a river, you'd be paddling, and if it gets really windy, you can throw a sail up. I didn't put a sail on this particular boat because I was worried that if I did put a sail on it and we set the sail up, because of the location of where it was, that it would rip. If you're not in the water, it would tear the boat apart. So, but that's how you could paddle it on a big lake. And then obviously going downstream, you'd use the rudder and paddles, and coming upstream, you'd be towing it. So your crew would be on the shore, hauling up the big rope. People would be in the boat with big poles, not like a paddle, like a great big pole, and be pushing off the bottom of the river while the guys are pulling up front. So the whole crew would be working. And then when it's time to portage it, you get your rounds and you roll the boat, and you'd have to unload it too. So you have all your stuff in there, and you'd have to get your stuff to where you're going. So you decide to tough it out and portage it to the max.
so are there any other videos that you sent us that you'd like us to see, or anything that we've missed?
I don't think we missed anything. I think we played all the videos, right?
There was 5. I think we played.
There's one more. I have one more if you want to.
Okay.
Want me?
One more. We'll see what comes up.
Oh yeah, this is making cleaning the rudder. So that is how we've fixed it. So you put the first side through, pound it, and then we'd have to flip it over and do all the other ones too. So imagine by the end of the day, we'd have to take turns, obviously. We'd have to take turns doing most of the stuff, because it'd be like you'd swing your, like, oh, I got no arms left, so you're up. So we'd have to switch off. Incredibly different, incredibly difficult. I think one of the most incredible things was seeing how they joined things together back in the old days. Didn't have screws and stuff like that. So bending nails over and hammering them like staples was just, and the different types of joinery, like the notches of those beams, joining 2 beams like that. And it's incredible the things that they thought of that now because we have these modern ways that we've completely forgotten about. I mean, how do I even bend a piece of wood, or how do I make a mortise, or how do I do these crazy angles with 7 different angled cuts on them?
We had a question. Did you find any old diaries or letters or papers that, as you were doing your research, did you get any like firsthand people talking about the boats?
No, so that was the most difficult thing. So no one that I could find had ever had any knowledge of building this boat, and no one alive like that I could talk to. There's no one to call. So literally, even if I had $1 million and I could phone someone, I didn't know who to call. So it was no choice. It was just we decided. So there was no notes.
I just wondered whether some of the Japanese boat building techniques that were used in the Skeena and along the Lower Fraser might have used some of the same, run into some of the same problems that Pat ran into.
Well, probably. They probably have the secret answers too, right?
I just wondered whether or not that would have been a resource to look at.
All I had was the library and the internet, and I couldn't find anything on York boat building other than a quick little video. I couldn't really find any good, how to start or anything. All I could see was kind of a quick of a York boat being built, and or the plans were from Fort Garry, and those ones I found by phoning Fort Garry. Not even on the internet. I just phoned Fort Garry over and over again until someone answered the phone, hello, because I just kept phoning and phoning and phoning, right? And then finally someone answered and said, hey, who built the boat? Who built that boat there? I want to get the plans. And so he goes, oh, who was it? And then he remembered. And then a weeks later, they contacted me and said, I heard you want to get the plans. And then months later, I had them in my hands. And then years later, I was at Fort Langley talking to Shannon and Bridget, and we were doing it. So
I'm just blown away by what's been accomplished here. Hats off to you. My hat is off to you, Pat, for your diligence and I'm so thrilled that you gained that body of knowledge that was missing, because now you are the expert. You are the one who can now pass this on. So make use of it. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation and for the gift of this boat as well. This is fabulous.
Oh, it was free. It's for you guys. It's for everybody, right? I didn't make it to be famous. I wanted to make sure that we all had something we could put our hands on and we have a connection, because I couldn't think of anywhere when I think of where can I go see something Métis, right? Other than I've gone to a lot of schools and I put carts in schools and universities, but this is by far the biggest footprint that we could make. So I'm so happy that we got to. It was an honor. So please go and see it, everybody.